Welcome back to the channel. We are continuing our dive into the different suppressors I have, and today we are going to talk about the Otter Labs OCM5. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am a massive Gordon Carbine fan. This is a clone-ish gun that I did a couple years ago in 2022. And so getting this gun together, I did a video on it, on should you build one or buy one from someone that does resto mods like Type A. This is one that I sort of built up. It is not clone correct, but I went with the Otter Labs OCM5 for the suppressor on this build because in 2022, I could not get my hands on an AEM5. Allen Engineering was making them at a very slow pace. Now Trajectory Arms has taken over the production and they're coming out much, much faster, which is awesome. But back then, getting the only way I could get a hold of a can to look like it was supposed to go on a Gordon Carbine was to get one from Otter Labs, and I'm very, very glad that I did. History, I'm not going to go much into history on the suppressor because I'm not Forgotten Weapons, but the Gordon Carbine and what those guys were running back then in Mogadishu and the other operators, the other Delta guys back then, they were running OCM5 model suppressors. And from what I can gather and what I've been told, they were on 14.5-inch guns, where the OCM5 model was mounted to it with a collar and muzzle brake system and another collar back here. So this does not really look exactly like the gun from the movie or the guns that were being used, but it was what I had to go with. So this is a 12.5-inch gun. Typically they go on 14.5. But let's just get right down to it and talk about this very, very cool suppressor as I take a few seconds to thread it off of my Gordon Carbine clone. So the OCM5 is very, very similar in appearance to an AEM5 or the OPSync suppressor. It does go over the barrel significantly before it starts to thread on, so you're getting a very long suppressor, but you're getting the benefit of this first baffle actually kind of hugging around the suppressor. So it does require a two-piece mounting system, a threaded brake at the front, and then a collar on the M4 at the back for the barrel profile, and that's what it seats against when you're threading it on. So you will need to make sure that the barrel has the right profile and that this collar is in the correct position to get enough thread engagement and pressure to hold the suppressor on and not have any gases leak around it. So it is a little bit more of a complicated mounting system. Now, why the OCM5? I said before, couldn't get anything else in 2022. Otter Labs also has been making some really cool stuff. Go check out the Polonium. I definitely want to take a look at that can and some of the other things that have been coming out of there. But they made this can, I believe it came out in 2022, and it was just very hard to get a hold of an actual AEM5. Now, what they say is that this is lighter, quieter, and less back pressure than an AEM5 because they have a little bit of a different design internally, and they use titanium baffles. Now, as far as verifying that, I don't have the ability to do so because I don't have an AEM5 or an OPSync can, but what I can tell you is that this is 8.5 inches long, 1.5 inches in girth, looks amazing, and sounds fantastic. And according to the websites, this is a little lighter. This is 16 ounces versus 21 for the AEM5. And finally, street price, you're going to see them right now around $768 is what I saw them on Silencer Shop for. And you're getting really fast approvals on Form 4s from the ATF. So this is probably the time, if you've ever thought about getting a suppressor, to jump on board and get one of these right now, especially if you're building a Gordy clone or a Mark 12-ish clone. Now, as far as really verifying where the sound ratings are, I leave that to Pew Science. He has not reviewed this, probably because most of his reviews are with I believe it's a 10.3-inch Mark 18. 10.3 inches is the shortest you can go with this suppressor per Otter Labs website. And with the mounting system, you'd have to use a barrel extension to mount this to a true Mark 18. So I don't know if he's ever going to actually review the sound signature on this. I can just tell you what my opinion is after having it for 2 years now. So first off, let's talk about my opinion of the mounting system itself. The two-piece system that you would use on an M4, very nice. I have shot this gun with just the brake like a couple times. It is a loud-ass brake. I don't like shooting brakes, and especially on a 12.5-inch gun, it's a little bit short, so it's obnoxious. This gun is only shot suppressed. Otter Creek does offer a couple of other options. I had a 14.5-inch barrel and some upper parts laying around, so I put this together, and it's a 14.5-inch barrel. I believe I got it from Roscoe. I believe it's a Roscoe barrel, but it doesn't really matter. But it's a 14.5-inch barrel, and it paired up perfectly with this handguard that I got from Zero Delta or unbranded AR out in North Carolina, because if you add this over the barrel extension, it comes back, and this can mates up perfectly with the end of the handguard. You could actually fit it underneath, and I did that with a shorter barrel or a longer handguard on another gun at one time, and was able to tuck it up underneath there. Which looks amazing, but the problem is when you get your suppressor tucked up underneath the handguard, these front M-LOK slots are unusable and you get a lot of heat. So I prefer to get it just as close as possible without tucking under and getting that radiant heat. But on this 14.5, it's awesome. And this over-the-barrel extension is very cool because you don't have to make sure the collar is the exact distance from the threads. It's already been done for you. It has flats for wrenching, and it's a flash hider instead of a brake, because I think brakes are obnoxious. Now, I wish it was a bird cage that didn't have the openings down at the bottom for dust if you're shooting prone, but the reality is I'm never going to shoot this gun with this upper without this suppressor on, without the OCM5 on it, so it doesn't really matter. But that's the two main options, and then there is a past the barrel extension that will go on a gun like my Type A 11.5 here, where the barrel ends right where the handguard is and there's not enough room to tuck it up under. I could use the past the barrel extension if I wanted to put it on this gun. I don't. I really like having this CGS Helios on here. This lives together. Now, beyond Gordon Carbines and other guns, the 12th model or the AEM5s, are used a lot in Mark 12-ish builds. I was going to go down that route for a different gun, but things happen, and I just have not gotten around to it. So maybe someday I'll do a Mark 12-ish build, but it's just it's a can that can be used for that. Now let's talk about performance. I don't have the equipment that Pew Science does, so I won't even try to be scientific. He's the man for that, and hopefully he reviews this someday. But I can tell you that to my ear, this is my favorite sounding suppressor out of every single one I own. You cannot shoot a Gordon carbine with the OCM5, and it's probably the same for the AEM5, without walking away with a smile on your face. It is just a blast to shoot. The sound just sounds amazing. Now, as far as back pressure is concerned, I can tell you that my 12.5 does run just fine with or without the can on it, so it's not really putting enough back pressure into the system to make it seem overgassed. And as far as gas out the ejection port and around the charging handle, it is way less gassy than any of my other dead air cans. It's probably a little bit less than that CGS Group Helios. Now, flow-through cans like the Huxworks, no, it doesn't even come close to that, but it is less gassy than other suppressors that I have on rifles. Now, I've been posting about this on Instagram, and Otter Creek Labs did reach out to me and say that if I replaced my buffer and my gas tube with hang on, let's see, Geisley Super 42 H3 buffer and the BRT gas tube, I would probably see additional sound and gas reductions. I haven't gone down that route, but just because, it's good enough for me. But I will say that when I put it on this upper, the 14.5-inch upper, Obviously, I have less gas, and I have a superlative arms adjustable gas block on here to tune it for this gun. And I do see less gas and less noise with that. And I know you're sitting there going, duh, that's what you would expect to see with those mods to it. But just want to let you know, it sounds good, and you can tune it to sound even better. The last thing to talk about is a shift of point of aim, point of impact. I didn't really spend any time testing that because that is not my main consideration with this gun here, the Gordon Carbine. I have no problem shooting a reduced zone silhouette out at 200 yards with this without any magnification on the rifle with this suppressor on here. So So it is accurate enough for me, even though I haven't done any point of aim, point of impact shift testing and accuracy testing with and without on the specific gun. It does the job for me. And honestly, 200 yards isn't really that far. Reduced zone or reduced silhouette, I believe, makes it a 300-yard equivalent shot. But it's really just not that much distance, and it works perfectly fine shooting M855. Talking about my Gordon Carbine, if I had to do it all over again, I would have gotten a 14.5-inch barrel, done the pin and weld so I didn't have to SBR my lower, and Otter Creek Labs does offer occasionally the M4 collar that would go in between the suppressor and the gas block, sight post gas block on a 14.5-inch barrel to make it look right and still have the extra velocity, sound reduction, gas reduction, all that, and be more clone correct. But I am where I am at this point. Love this gun. I'm not going to change anything about it and just keep running it and having fun. So the bottom line is, if you get an OCM5, you are going to love shooting it. I can't recommend it enough for Gordon guns, for Mark 12-ish builds. Okay, obviously it's not going to be clone correct, and really just, you know, other guns where you want to get a little more suppression on the gun without adding a lot of extra length to it because of the way this mounts over the barrel. So OCM5, 2 thumbs, way up.